Dae-jung didn't believe in coincidences, yet here he stood in the opulent presidential suite of the Ashford Grand, alive only because of one. The Korean Mafia boss adjusted his platinum cufflinks, his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows revealing a man who'd built an empire on calculated risks and ruthless precision. At 38, Dae-jung commanded the Biko syndicate with an iron fist wrapped in Armani silk. Tonight's meeting with the Russian arms dealer, Volkov, should have been routine, a simple exchange of diamonds for information about his rival's whereabouts. What he hadn't anticipated was the betrayal. The first bullet shattered the crystal decanter beside his head before he even registered the suite's door crashing open. 3 men in tactical gear stormed in, their movements synchronized, professional. Dae-jung dove behind the Italian leather sofa, his hand instinctively reaching for the Glock tucked at his ankle. Kang Dae-jung. The lead assailant's voice was mechanical through his mask. Your brother sends his regards. His brother. Of course. Kang Minute-ho had always been the jealous type, coveting the empire their father had left to Dae-jung alone. But hiring assassins? That crossed every line their family had ever drawn. 2 more shots splintered the coffee table. Dae-jung returned fire, catching one assailant in the shoulder, but his clip was running low. 3 against 1 in an enclosed space, even he knew these odds. He was calculating his escape route to the bedroom when he heard it. The sharp crack of bone meeting skull. The nearest assailant crumpled, and behind him stood a woman Dae-jung had somehow failed to notice in his initial scan of the room. She was tall, with dark skin that seemed to absorb the suite's golden lighting, her natural hair pulled back in a sleek bun. Most striking were her eyes, amber, like whiskey held up to firelight, and the fact that she was dressed in the hotel's housekeeping uniform while wielding a lamp base like a medieval mace. Suite needs cleaning, she said coolly, her voice carrying a hint of a British accent. The second assailant spun toward her, but she was already moving. With fluid grace that spoke of serious training, she swept his legs, caught his weapon mid-fall, and used it to block the third assailant's shot. The sound was deafening. She rolled, came up firing, and dropped him with 2 precise shots to the vest that sent him gasping to the floor. The lead assailant, recovering from his shock, aimed at her back. Down! Dae-jung shouted, firing his last 2 rounds. One caught the man's hand, sending his weapon skittering across the marble floor. The assassin clutched his bleeding hand and made a strategic retreat, dragging his wheezing companion while the one she'd struck with the lamp groaned but managed to stumble after them. Silence crashed over the suite like a wave. The woman calmly set down the weapon and brushed invisible dust from her uniform. You're bleeding, she observed, nodding at the graze on Dae-jung's temple he hadn't even felt. Who are you? Please like and subscribe. It helps the channel. He kept his empty gun trained on her, muscle memory overriding logic. She raised an eyebrow at the gesture. Zephyrine Baptiste. But most people call me Zeph. She glanced at his gun, then back at his face. You out of bullets? That doesn't answer my question. I'm housekeeping. Obviously. The corner of her mouth twitched. Though I suppose my job description didn't include taking out armed intruders. I'll have to discuss a raise with management. Despite everything, despite the adrenaline still flooding his system and the dead man's blood seeping into the Persian rug, Dae-jung found himself almost smiling. You just saved my life. I did. She walked to the bar, somehow stepping over debris and bodies with the poise of someone navigating a ballroom. She poured 2 fingers of whiskey into an unbroken glass and downed it in one smooth motion. And now you're going to tell me why 3 trained killers just tried to turn you into Swiss cheese in my hotel. Your hotel. I work here. That makes it mine. She poured another glass and held it out to him. You have approximately 4 minutes before hotel security arrives. I suggest you start talking, Mr. Kang. She knew his name. That was either very good or catastrophically bad. Dae-jung took the offered glass, his mind racing through scenarios and contingencies. You know who I am. I know what you are. Zephyrine leaned against the bar, her amber eyes dissecting him with unsettling precision. Kang Dae-jung, head of the Biko syndicate. Your organization controls 60% of the illegal arms trade in East Asia. You've been staying in this hotel for 3 days under the name James Park, paying cash, meeting with various unsavory characters. She paused. You also tip the housekeeping staff generously, never leave a mess, and say thank you in 5 different languages. It's almost endearing. You've been watching me. I've been watching everyone. It's what I do. She glanced at an antique clock on the mantel. 3 minutes now. Security will want answers. I assume you'd prefer not to be here when they arrive. She was right. The Ashford Grand security was discreet but thorough, catering to clientele who valued privacy above all else. But even they couldn't ignore gunfire and bodies. What do you want? For you to leave quietly. I'll handle security. She moved toward the door with purpose. Take the service elevator at the end of the hall. It leads directly to the underground parking garage. Your driver is in Bay 17. How do you? I know everything that happens in this hotel, Mr. Kang. She paused at the threshold, her expression unreadable. Consider this professional courtesy. The Ashford Grand's reputation depends on discretion. Dae-jung should have left. Every instinct honed by 15 years in the underworld screamed at him to disappear into the night. Instead, he found himself asking, "Who are you really, Zephyrin Baptiste?" Something flickered in those amber eyes, recognition, perhaps, that he'd seen through her performance. Someone who prefers the living to the dead. It's better for business. She pulled out her phone. Now go, before I change my mind about helping you. He went, but not before memoizing every detail of her face. 72 hours later, Dae-jung sat in his private office in the Biko Tower, listening to his head of security confirm what he already suspected. There is no Zephyrin Baptiste employed by the Ashford Grand, Park Ji-woo reported, his tablet displaying personnel records. No housekeeping staff member matching her description. The woman doesn't exist, at least not officially. She was there, Dae-jung insisted. She saved my life. I believe you, boss. But whoever she is, she's a ghost. Ji-woo swiped through more data. However, I did find something interesting. 3 days before the attempt on your life, a woman matching that description was spotted entering the service entrance of the hotel. Security footage shows her using a keycard that belongs to a maintenance worker who was on vacation in Bali at the time. She infiltrated the hotel specifically for that night. It would appear so. Ji-woo hesitated. There's more. I've been digging into your brother's recent activities. The assassins he hired? They are from the Antonov Group, Russian mercenaries, very expensive. But here's the twist. Someone leaked information about the hit to a private intelligence network called the Obsidian Collective 2 days before it happened. Dae-jung's blood ran cold. The Obsidian Collective was legend in criminal circles, a shadowy organization of information brokers, assassins, and fixers who operated globally. They didn't take sides, they traded in secrets and chaos, selling to the highest bidder. You think Zephyrin works for them? I think Zephyrin Baptiste is them. Or at least, a significant part of their operation. Ji-woo pulled up a classified document, its header marked with an obsidian teardrop symbol. I paid a considerable sum to a former MI6 analyst. According to him, the Obsidian Collective's top operative in Asia goes by various names, but her real identity is classified above top secret. What isn't classified? She's a black British woman, expert in infiltration and combat, and she's credited with preventing at least 7 major gang wars in the past 3 years by strategically intervening. She prevents wars. She maintains profitable chaos, boss. Wars are bad for business. They draw attention, involve authorities, disrupt markets. The collective prefers a controlled ecosystem where all the criminal organizations stay just powerful enough to keep buying their services, but not powerful enough to destabilize everything. Dae-jung processed this information, his mind connecting dots he wished would remain separate. So she saved me because my death would have triggered a succession war in the Biko syndicate. Exactly. Your brother is impulsive, violent, and lacks your diplomatic skills. He'd have the entire Korean underworld in flames within months. Bad for everyone's bottom line. Ji-woo closed his tablet. The question is, what do we do about her? Dae-jung stood, walking to the window that overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline. Somewhere in that sprawl of light and shadow, Zephyrin Baptiste was watching, calculating, pulling strings. The smart play was to forget her, be grateful for the accidental alliance, and tighten his own security. But Kang Dae-jung hadn't built an empire by making the smart play. Find her, he ordered. I need to speak with her again. Boss, with all respect, approaching the Obsidian Collective uninvited is not a request, Ji-woo. 3 days later, a message arrived on Dae-jung's private encrypted phone, Suite 1847. Midnight. Come alone. Z. The presidential suite looked immaculate, no trace remaining of the violence that had occurred there nearly a week ago. Zéphyrine stood by the window in a black evening dress that seemed designed to weaponize elegance itself, her natural hair cascading over her shoulders in defined curls. Without the housekeeping uniform, she looked like she belonged in a different world entirely, one of power and shadows. "You're persistent," she said without turning. "I appreciate that in a man, even if it is monumentally stupid." I needed to understand. Dae-jung closed the door behind him, acutely aware he'd followed her instruction to come alone despite every tactical bone in his body protesting. "Who you are. Why you saved me. I told you. Bad for business." She finally turned, and the city lights behind her created a halo effect that made her seem almost ethereal. "Your death would have destabilized the entire East Asian underground economy. The Obsidian Collective has significant investments in that stability. That's the official reason." He moved closer, drawn by something he couldn't quite name. "What's the real one?" A smile ghosted across her lips. "Arrogant, assuming there's a personal reason." "There's always a personal reason." He was close enough now to see the faint scar above her left eyebrow, the slight asymmetry in her smile that suggested old pain. "You could have tipped off hotel security, let them handle it. Instead, you engaged 3 armed men with a lamp. That's not protocol for an intelligence operative maintaining market stability." "Perhaps I was bored. Perhaps you're lying." The silence stretched between them like a tightrope. Then, surprisingly, Zéphyrine laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her entire face. "You're right. I could have handled it a dozen different ways." She moved to the bar, poured 2 glasses of wine. "The truth? I've been tracking you for 3 months, Mr. Kang. Watching you build alliances, broker peace between rivals, navigate the impossible politics of your world. You're not like the others." "The others?" "The monsters I usually deal with." She handed him a glass. "Men who traffic in human misery, who see people as disposable resources. You're a criminal, yes, but you have principles. A code. You don't deal in drugs, prostitution, human trafficking. Your organization operates in weapons, information, and protection. Violent, certainly, but not cruel for cruelty's sake. You've constructed quite the profile." "It's what I do." She took a sip of wine. "And when I saw those men burst through that door, I made a decision based not on business, but on something far more dangerous, instinct. I decided you were worth saving." The admission hung in the air between them. Dae-jung felt something shift in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced since he was young enough to believe in concepts like fate. "And now? What happens now?" "Now, we have a problem." Zéphyrine set down her glass, her expression growing serious. "Your brother knows the hit failed. He's hired someone else, someone even I can't track. An independent operator called the Wraith. He's already in Seoul. You're warning me." "I'm proposing an alliance." She met his gaze directly. "The Obsidian Collective wants your brother stopped before he tears apart everything we've worked to build. You want to survive and protect your organization. Our interests align." "Temporarily. Perhaps." Something glittered in her amber eyes. "Or perhaps this is the beginning of something more interesting." Dae-jung knew he should ask about strategy, about the Wraith, about concrete plans. Instead, he asked, "Is Zéphyrine Baptiste even your real name? Does it matter?" "Yes." She studied him for a long moment, and he had the sense of being weighed on scales he couldn't see. "Then, Zéphyrine Amora Baptiste. Daughter of a British diplomat and a Senegalese professor. Recruited by MI6 at 22, burned at 26 after discovering my superiors were more interested in profits than justice. The Obsidian Collective gave me purpose when I had none left. And now I'm standing in a hotel suite with a man I should see as nothing more than an asset, wondering why my heart is beating faster than it did when I faced 3 trained killers." She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something exotic, spicy. "Tell me, Mr. Kang, do you believe in fate?" "I believe in choices." His hand found hers, and he was struck by how perfectly their fingers interlaced. "And I'm choosing to trust you, Zéphyrine Amora Baptiste." "That's remarkably foolish. I've been told I have excellent instincts." She kissed him then, or perhaps he kissed her, later, neither could quite remember who moved first. What Dae-jung knew with absolute certainty was that this was either the best or worst decision of his life. He found and he didn't particularly care which. When they finally broke apart, Zephyrine smile was pure mischief. Well, this complicates everything. Good, Dae-jung replied. I've always preferred complicated. Outside the suite, Seoul continued its glittering existence, unaware that in that moment, the Queen of Shadows and the King of Seoul's underworld had just rewritten the rules of their dangerous game. And somewhere in the darkness, the Wraith was already closing in. But that, as they say, is a story for another night. Please like and subscribe and don't stop here. Check the channel for more stories.